Eduardo Curry is one of the most prominent lawyers here in Charleston, and he has been practicing law for over 20 years. In this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I speak exclusively with him one-on-one. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. Mr. Curry,
Yes.
it's so good to meet you and see you again.
Mr. Washington, it's so good to see you. I was real pleased that you received that award the other night at the Citadel Black History Month program.
Right.
I thought that was a very, very fine award for someone as astute as you.
Oh, thank you greatly. I really appreciate it. Yes, indeed. And like I told you, we met there at the banquet, and I told you I wanted to interview you for Quintin's Close-Ups, so here we are.
Oh, absolutely.
And you know, I went on your website and I saw your biography.
Sure.
And I understand that you've been practicing law since 1991.
I have been actually since 1990. I
Wow.
took the Pennsylvania bar because I was on the way into D.C., and so I've been licensed as a lawyer since 1990.
Wow. What is the biggest difference between 1990 and right now as far as law in your mind?
It's very interesting. Originally, when we moved here, my wife is a third-generation Charlestonian, so I drank the water, ate the food, and married a girl from there. But what I have learned is that originally when I came, South Carolina was a lot more closed. If you weren't a member of or had of the family of the University of South Carolina Law School, quite frankly, they were real tepid on whether or not they wanted to hire you. And so what I've seen, number one difference is that, first of all, there's more than one law school. There's not Charleston Law, USC. Second of all, the attitudes have been to hire people outside of the regional zone. So if you went to a law school other than in South Carolina, the temperature now is a little more hot where they hire you. And I think the third reason is there has been an opening of doors for minorities. Allowing firms that are majority firms to hire minority firms, and then minority firms to hire people from a majority area. So you've gotten a little more mixture in terms of the legal community, and a little more diversity in terms of what we can offer.
And let me get back to you. And the biography reads this: born the eldest son of 8 children to Bishop and Mrs. Eddie Curry in Monticello, Florida.
Right.
How did you stand up in that crowd?
Well, first of all, I'm the alpha dog. I'm number one. My parents, my father was a minister who ended up getting ordained as a bishop in the Church of God, and they moved him around. We were in Florida, Alabama, Tennessee. And so as the number one, the eldest child, you see a lot, but you're required to do a lot.
Right.
And so there were 5 boys and 3 girls. And I'm pleased to say that all of them are college graduates. God worked in our lives. My parents, they didn't have a lot of money, but they really believed in education. And we are products of public school. And I'm still a proponent of public schools. I support public schools because if you can afford it, fine. Private education is great. But for the most of us, we're going to live in a public world. We're going to deal with public people. And so public school is a great precursor for that. So as the eldest child, I was expected to be the standard bearer. Stay out of trouble, no arrest, do your work, nothing less than a B, be humble, do your chores and those kinds of things. So I thought I set the pace pretty well for them.
And you talk about education, it reads this: he attended Thomason College, where he received an Associate's of Business degree. He received a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice and a Master of Science in Criminal Justice from the University of Tennessee with honors.
Right.
He earned his doctorate of jurisprudence from the Salmon P. Chase College of Law.
That's right.
He received his Master's of Divinity from Payne Theological Seminary.
Right.
Where did your love of criminal justice and seminary come from?
Very interesting. I know a lot of people don't recall that this actor, but there used to be an actor called Perry Mason. He was Ironside eventually, and I used to watch that. That was before cable, 3 channels and 12 o'clock, and they play the national anthem and it's off.
Right.
But when I got a chance to watch Perry Mason and ultimately Ironside, I fell in the love of this intricacy of what happens when people have to seek justice or seek recourse, and it stayed in my mind. So by the age of 11, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. I just didn't know any lawyers. And it was interesting how that worked. I was probably maybe a senior in college at the University of Tennessee.
Oh, yeah.
taking a night class, the sociology of law. Big, thick book, a lot of writing, no pictures. Okay. But every time I came to class, my professor was a guy named Judge Russell B. Henson. He was a retired judge in Chattanooga. And he'd ask questions, I'd raise my hand and answer it. Well, what it appeared was I must have been the only one in class reading a no picture or a pictureless book. And so one day after class, he said, "Hey, Curry, I need to speak to you." And of course, my heart was pumping because I never had a professor say he needed to speak to me after class.
Right.
And he said, "Have you ever thought about going to law school?" I said, "Yes, sir, I want to go to law school." He says, "Well, have you taken the LSAT?" I said, "What's that?" He said, "All right." Sat me down and said, "You taking the ACT or the SAT?" I said, "Yes." LSAT is an entry level test.
Right.
I said, "Well, when is it?" I was anxious. He looked at me and said, "In 2 weeks." Now, back in those days, the LSAT has changed.
Right.
You used to be able, you could have late registration literally almost right up to the day
Right.
of the exam.
Right.
So sure enough, I sent my money in, scraped it up. I was working and sent it in and went and took the test. And phenomenally well, through the grace of God, I did pretty well.
Wow.
And he encouraged me. I applied to Harvard and Boston College because I knew that the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had gone there, and I thought that would be an interesting place to go. And he said, "Well, have you ever considered the University of Tennessee?" I said, "No, I haven't." He said, "Why don't you apply?" Surely I applied, and mysteriously, or through grace,
Yes.
I would like to believe that, I received a full ride, a full academic scholarship. Turned out, guess who was the benefit? Who was the? I guess he was the owner and the projector of the scholarship. Was Russell B. Henson, and so he nominated me to receive the scholarship, and
Yes.
the rest is history.
Wow. You talk about history. Obviously, you're the owner of the Curry Law Firm.
I am.
Walk me through how that came about.
It's interesting. I started off practicing with attorney Renee Gators.
Oh, yes.
And then from her, went to attorney Arthur McFarland.
Yes.
And then from there, sort of went out on my own. My wife joined me, who's, as you know, the associate probate judge for Charleston County.
Right.
And we started Curry and Curry. And then George Counts joined with us. He left Neighborhood Legal Services. So it was Curry and Counts on
Right.
Spring Street.
Oh, yes.
And then from that, we moved on. She went to the bench about 18, 19 years ago. And then I added a partner, Curry Counts in Hugie.
Right.
And then we were over West Ashley. And then from there, we kind of expanded here. And I've had a plethora of people under Curry Law that have worked with me here
Yes.
with regard to that. And it's been a really good ride. We champion the causes of the underprivileged in probate, personal injury, criminal, and family law. In addition, I do ecclesiastical law, so
Right.
I end up representing churches and church-related people
Right.
along those lines. And so it's been a good ride.
And one of those people is Marvin Pendarvis, state representative right now.
That's right. That's right. I've had a plethora of young lawyers come through that have been great lawyers, or going to be great lawyers, and he was one of them that I hired right out of law school. I hired Marvin Pendarvis, I hired Tyler Bowman,
Right.
I hired Kelvin Hugie.
Right.
It's interesting. I've hired Housey, Daniel Housey.
Right.
So it's getting to the point I'm starting to feel a little dated because I'm producing all these lawyers in the street, and they're actually going on to do very well. And so I'm pleased if I was able to help them understand the law. Presently, I've got about 4 or 5 law students from the Charleston Law. I said, look, I owe them a duty to train them as well.
Yes, indeed. And you always talk about the grace of God. And I was reading this particular article. It says this: He proclaims salvation, sanctification, and baptism in the Holy Ghost. And I didn't know this, but you are a faithful pastor and servant and member of Tidwin.
Well, it's changed. You know, the A and B. That's right, Tidwin A and B. Get this. I'm an ordained, I'm an itinerant elder in the African Methodist Episcopal Church.
Okay.
You probably should know this is not in my bio,
Okay.
and they're going to upgrade it or
Okay.
update it. I am a member of the Judicial Council of the African Methodist Episcopal Church worldwide. I ran in our last quadrennial and I won.
Wow.
And so it's like being on the Supreme Court of the African
Sure.
Methodist Episcopal Church. But also I'm a pastor, and the AME church moves you around because itinerant means travel.
Right.
And so as a traveling elder, I'm now at Chavis African Methodist Episcopal Church in Hemingway, South Carolina.
Yes.
As a pastor, which is, I think, the greatest job someone could have, second to being a football coach.
You're right about that.
Well, I like the fact of being able to talk with people, to sing the praises of God, to witness to them, to counsel them, to help folk understand that heaven is one place and hell is another, but our problems are here on earth.
That's true.
And we have to be able to handle them. And the Spirit of God and God's Word said, I'll never leave you or forsake you.
That's true.
So when you're in issues, the question is, God doesn't care what you're going through. God cares how you go through it.
Sure.
A lot of people don't realize, what do you mean? What do you mean? You can be dead like Lazarus. Jesus called him away. You can be hungry like the widow and the mite. God can feed you. You can be blind or lame or dumb, and God can cause you to see or to walk or to talk. So what you're going through is really a temporary issue. And so as a person of faith, as an advancer of the kingdom, those are things that are primarily important with me. And so when people ask me, well, which triumphs? Man's law or God's law? I would say God's law is paramount. And then everything else falls into place.
That was my next question. How do you use faith to get your law issues out of the way?
All the time. People come in. I tell people, as a lawyer, no one comes into my practice and I got $1 billion and I want to give it away. They come in and say, I'm hurt, I'm injured, I'm in a bad relationship, someone's died in my family, I've got some issues that I need to resolve in an accident, and I'm needing you to help me. And so part of what I do when I'm talking to people about the counseling of the natural or secular law,
right.
I'm also talking to them about spiritual healing. How they have to not say, why did this happen to me? Why am I going through a bad divorce? Why did my child get arrested? Why am I in an auto accident and a debilitating issue? Or why did someone die in my family that I love? You have to tell them that God is in charge of your life. And when you do that, I'm able to mesh the legal with the ecclesiastical, the spiritual with the secular,
right.
And teaching them to have a vertical relationship with them and God, and a horizontal relationship with them and their fellow humans. Yeah. And it works out.
There you go. And without naming names, what particular case still stays with you right now in your mind?
It's very interesting. I've tried a lot of cases in the last 28 or so years, and I've seen a lot of pain and misery. I remember a young man who had gotten himself into a fix, a whirl of a fix, and received some charges, a lot of drug charges. And he had a mother who was adamant about if he got another chance, he'd turn it around. Sure enough, I tried the case and got, of all things, a directed verdict at the end of the case, or at the end of the prosecution's case in chief. Something's like having a blue moon, a triple blue moon. I got it. This young man turned his life around and did very well in life, and now is a mentor to other people. So that stood out, that if you are a champion, even when causes look bad, wrong, difficult, you can be there. I've handled cases where people have been killed, and we've been able to get them. One of the cases that stood out in my life was a young lady who was on her 5th baby and ended up having some difficulty, and we were able to get her a 7-figure verdict. But unfortunately, she died, and it left her husband and her children there. But we were at least able to bring some financial comfort to them. Nothing can replace a life.
That's true.
And so those two cases stand out in my life because it allowed me to see how we can use the law to advance the kingdom spiritually and to advance the life of the people who are hurt or injured.
Yeah. Mentoring. If a law student was sitting right next to you right now, what would you say to them one-on-one about the future of law?
Then you have to be committed to your profession. Money will come.
Right.
Fame will come.
Right.
But you have to be committed to understanding the intricacies of the practice of law. Never put financial gain above doing the right thing, above being able to be passionate, to be zealous, to be committed to the cause of your client. Also to be ethical and moral Okay? You don't have to be immoral to win. And so when you teach them the goals of being a lawyer, of advancing society, of being a emissary of this great profession, then they can gain fortune, fame, and notoriety. I've been on television, I've been on ESPN, I've been on CNN, I've been all kinds of places. But at the end of the day, I'm most proud of being someone who could represent the profession of law in a moral, ethical, and in a competent way, zealously placing and putting my client's interest above my own. When you can do that, all the other things will come. Okay.
And that brings it back to family. Walk me through how you and Judge Curry met.
Yeah, very interesting. I met her at the University of Tennessee. I was the first year, she was the second year. I was the second year, she was the first year. And I had a woman on one arm and one on the other from South Carolina. I met her, looked at her, wow. And then from that, we sort of gained a friendship. I gave her plenty of law books. Let the record reflect. I gave her plenty of law books. And we became friends. And that was in the fall of 1985.
Oh, a year right after I was born.
That's right. Oh, well, I don't look that old. The Holy Ghost will keep you. But in 1985, and we dated 3 years and got married.
Wow.
I'm pleased to say we have 3 children and a granddaughter who we love dearly. And now of the 3 children, 2 of them are married, so we have a daughter-in-law and got a son-in-law.
Yes.
So the family's growing.
Yes. What's next for you in your mind?
Really? I am poised to be a missionary. And not necessarily. People like to think missionaries are out of Africa.
Right.
Where mission is right here in the urban, right here in South Carolina, right here in the county of Charleston, right here in the cities of Charleston and North Charleston. And so I'm poised. I want to be a missionary. I'm not going to be sure that I'm going to run in the African Methodist Episcopal Church. Retirement age is 75. That's irrelevant for me. Okay, I think I'm in great shape. I'm 25. Time 2, plus 5, soon to be 6. And so my next goal is to probably still be a partner in Curry Law, but also to poised to do mission more external, advancing the kingdom. And so that's where I think I'll end up being a missionary, whether it's a global missionary or a regional missionary or just a missionary here in the county. Trying to teach people to improve their vertical relationship, them and God, and their horizontal relationship, them and their fellow humans. And if you look at it, vertical plus horizontal, it equals the cross. And so that's where I'm going.
Wow. Well, Attorney Eduardo Curry, thank you so much for your time. I probably bitched
Eduardo, it's all right. Eduardo, for those out there, I'm glad, Brother Washington, I'm glad to have seen you. I thank you for the opportunity. And I follow you all the time.
Oh, thank you for watching Quintin's Close-Ups.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And now the judge is next for me.
Oh, I look forward to it. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate this.
Okay, that's good.